Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome into the Vegas Insider YouTube channel. I'm Tom. Today, we're going to be going over the RBC Heritage, one of the better, more well-known PGA events on the calendar year. One of the favorite events for my guest, Matt Cooper, who joined us for the Masters. And Matt, you did pretty well with your Masters best bets. We got Xander Schauffele top 10 that hit. I know you like Justin Rose as a 100-to-1 long shot. Now, he didn't win, but he came awfully close. We also faded Bryson DeChambeau. So overall, a pretty good wagering event for us this weekend. What were your thoughts on the Masters real quick before we get into the RBC Heritage?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think the final round wasn't quite as thrilling as we might all have hoped. In actual fact, probably the thrills came down to just two holes. And ironically, but first of all, Matsuyama found water at 15, and then Schauffele found water at 16, and that's kind of like it, really. But you can't, like you said, I was on Justin Rose at a big price, and I was on Schauffele as well, and ultimately they didn't win. But you can't moan when somebody takes control of an event and then sort of dominates it. Good luck to him. It was a very impressive effort. Yeah, roll on. And I'm just very pleased. Yeah, DeChambeau, I didn't. He's very interesting. Some of his quotes, he clearly struggles when he hasn't got the green book in his hands, which helps him putt. And he admits that he hasn't come to terms with the hitting approaches into Augusta's greens. So the science is not defeating the art of Augusta. But I wouldn't back against him finding the answer eventually. But I certainly wouldn't be rushing to back him again next year either.
Right, and then Will Zalatoris, just a great debut. His top debut in odds were plus 110 entering, which were the highest. And he ended up, I mean, he blew everyone out of the water in that market. So overall, yeah, just a fun event. The last day wasn't as exciting. But yeah, Xander had that triple bogey. It was pretty much it after that. And then here, you'll like this, Matt. So I took one stroke in the winning margin for plus 250, and Matsuyama bogeyed on the last hole for that to hit. So I was a little lucky.
That's fantastic.
There. Yeah, I know, right? I was like, oh, he's gonna make this for par, and then sure enough, he bogeyed. I was like, yes.
So in actual,
my weekend, actually.
Well, so in actual fact, when the patrons did that sort of glum sigh on the 72nd green, the only person making noise anywhere was you, Tom.
Yeah, I was making a very loud pitched scream in celebration because if I didn't get that, I would have gone under my units for the weekend. So thank you, Matsuyama, for not only winning but for bogeying that last hole for me. I really appreciate it. All right, so we're moving to Hilton now. We're going to South Carolina. That's where the RBC Heritage is held. Matt, I know this is your favorite event, one of your top events on the calendar year. And I look at the odds that are given right now. We looked through some of the favorites. Webb Simpson, he won here in 2020. He is the favorite at plus 1,100 or 11-1. Then you have Dustin Johnson right behind him, Patrick Cantlay, Matthew Fitzpatrick, and Colin Morikawa. Real quick, Matt, looking at the top five favorites for this, I know you love Webb Simpson too. But who do you like in terms of those top five favorites to perform the best at the RBC Heritage this weekend?
Yeah, you bang on that. I like Webb Simpson. Anytime Webb Simpson gets on Bermuda grass greens, my nose starts twitching. But he's around about the right price he should be. Dustin Johnson, I'd be happy to fade. He's not made a top 15 here in 5 attempts, and at the moment he looks a little bit troubled with his game. So a world number one can win anywhere. So he could bring his A game this week out of nowhere and win it, sure. But I'm not going to back him at the price. Patrick Cantlay's got a great record here, third twice, seventh, but he hasn't. His stroke play course form is just awful. Missed the cut at Sawgrass, missed the cut at Augusta, and didn't look good in any respect to either of them. Daniel Berger, there's a lot to like about Daniel Berger, but there's possibly a little bit of value there because he's won at Southwind. He's done okay at Harbour Town. One maybe to look at is Colin Morikawa. Now, when you first look at his tournament debut last year, he made the cut and then just hung around. He didn't do anything special. But just bear in mind with that the week before, he lost a playoff at the Colonial to Daniel Berger. So it's kind of expected that he might have been a little bit disappointed. Morikawa's long game has the possibility of being a really nice fit for this week. I'm not entirely convinced that it's enough for me to make him a bet, but it's worth bearing in mind that his performance last year was a little bit affected by what had happened the week before.
You mentioned the Bermuda grass that Webb Simpson seems to play well on. So I know we talked about this with the Masters, similar courses. Players that play well at Plantation typically do well at Augusta. There were a few other examples. Riviera, you had mentioned last week. Do we have any similarities for the RBC Heritage this week for Harbor? Do we have any courses that some of these players have played on in the past with Bermuda grass that you fancy entering this weekend because they have played well in similar tournaments or similar golf courses, I should say?
Yeah, there's probably a couple of angles on this. The first would be Wailea, which hosts the Sony Open, the Sony Hawaiian Open. That's very similar in that it's flat, it's breezy by the sea, Bermuda grass greens. You need to be able to go from A to B in tidy fashion and then mop it up around the greens. I think Sea Island is kind of similar. El Camaleon that hosts the Mayakoba Classic. Those three are definitely the same sort of thing. The key thing to remember with Harbour Town is it's tree lined for the most part, but it's by the sea. It's very flat. You can hit the fairway and you can still be impeded by trees hitting your next shot. So you need somebody who can cope with that sort of oddity, somebody who can cope in blustery weather, but also the greens are very small. So you've got to be very accurate with that. But if you're not accurate, you've got to be able to chip and put your way to save par. But the good news is if you do hit the greens, they're kind of flattish. And also because they're small greens, you can have a birdie opportunity. So it tends to be that blustery ball strikers who can chip. And a classic example of that is double winner Boo Weekley a few years ago. I mean, he's a perfect fit for that kind of description of something. But you said, is there anybody I fancy in particular? There is, and it's a slightly different course connection that I'm going with. And it's Siwoo Kim, the Korean player. And he has quite a nice record on the course, but he's a winner at TPC Sawgrass, which isn't necessarily like it's not an unlike course as this Bermuda grass, and you need to be able to ball strike nicely. But it was designed by Pete Dye, which Harbour Town was, and also Siwoo Kim won the Amex this year, and they played 3 of the rounds this year on another Pete Dye design. And I actually backed him for that tournament, clean off the back. That Siwoo Kim really likes playing Pete Dye designs. I'm just going to quickly look at what Siwoo Kim has done.
I have him as 4,500, so 45 to 1 to win.
Yeah, I think that's quite a nice price.
Yeah, I mean, you could even find value. His top 5 is 11 to 1, and then his top 10 is plus 450.
Yeah, I mean, so when he's played Harbour Town, he was 14th on debut, and then he finished second in 2018. Oh, wow. He's actually missed 2 cuts since, but there's quite an interesting kind of pattern to his career. So he was very good early on, gained a couple of wins at the Wyndham and the TPC. Then he kind of dipped, and that's when he had his 2 missed cuts. But through the middle of last year to now, he started to play well again. And when he's done well, I mean, he actually played TPC well this year. He finished tied 9th, and he was also 12th last week at the Masters. So he's in great nick. He loves Dye designs. He's finished second at this tournament. I don't see that there's a great deal not to like about Siwoo Kim this week.
Yeah. And then kind of looking at past results and golfers that have done well here too. You mentioned Siwoo Kim. What about CT Pan? He won here in 2019. His odds to win are, I mean, it's just riddled with value. And I understand why no one's really lining up at the bookies to put a wager on CT Pan. But he's won here in the past. His odds to win are 15,000. You know, I highly doubt he's going to win. But you look at some other odds. His top 10 is 1,200, 12 to 1. Do you like CT Pan to compete this week? Do you think that maybe we should be looking into top 20 markets maybe, or top 30s with CT Pan? Because there is value there for a guy who has won here before in the past.
Yeah, and I tell you what I would argue with him. I mean, first of all, his other 3 performances at Harbour Town, they don't come close to being as good as his victory in 2019, but he's always made the cut there. Now that's quite instructive because CT Pan does, I would be very surprised if there's another course on the PGA Tour where he goes 4 for 4 at making the cut. So he clearly likes the course. Now, somebody would say, oh, well, he shot 79 in round 1 last week and missed the cut at the Masters. But I think there's good reason why he kind of did that. And that is that he was a debutant at the Masters in November and finished 7th. So he absolutely thrived on it. But a debutant playing in November will have got a hell of a shock playing the Masters last week.
Right.
Because it was soft in November and it was firmer than it usually is in April, this April. So, I mean, his head would have been frazzled in that first round. So I'm not surprised he missed the cut. In actual fact, he shot 71 in round 2. So that was quite nice. And his previous performance on tour, he finished 3rd at the Honda Classic, which is Bermuda grass greens and blustery Florida wind. So it's not unlike what he's going to face this week. So yeah, I would not be in a position to put somebody off following him, maybe not for the win, but certainly for, grabbing a top 10 or top 20 at a big price. It's also interesting, just flicking down his results this season. He also posted a 65 at the Sony Open in the first round.
Oh, wow.
He ultimately missed the cut, but I mean, again, that's just proof again that, the conditions he's facing this week are in his sweet spot. Yeah, he's a big price for a reason, but if he's going to thrive anywhere, it tends to be at this sort of challenge.
The runner-up the year CT Pan won was Matt Kuchar. And Matt Kuchar has now seen a top 2 result, including a win in the last 7 RBC Heritage events. So do we like Matt Kuchar this week? What do you think about his performance heading into Hilton Head?
Yeah, he's a dizzying ability to make the cut here. It's very much a horses for courses venue, this. So, he's been playing here every year and he hasn't missed a cut since 2003.
Wow. That's impressive.
Yeah. Honestly, I think I'd probably veer towards something quite conservative with him.
Well, he has the same odds as Siwoo Kim does across the board.
Right. What I would probably do with Kuchar is I'd probably go for something along the lines of top 10 rather than he could win it, but I'd be a little bit more surprised if he won it than Siwoo Kim. But I'd partly put that down to the fact that Kim is probably a little bit hungrier than Matt Kuchar is at this point in his career.
Yeah.
And also the fact that, Kuchar's a very consistent player, but ultimately he doesn't win as often as he perhaps should. But what he does do is he does finish in the top 10 more very frequently. He hasn't done it for a long while, but then when he went to the WGC Dell match play, rediscovered his form, played very well at Texas. And that kind of explains why he didn't do so well at Augusta last week. I think his expectations would have been higher. But they'll have been balanced out for this week, and he'll be just chuffed to be back at a place that he loves.
You mentioned a 2-time winner earlier in Boo Weekly. There's another one who has substantial odds. Actually, his odds to win are 17,500. That's Jim Furyk. And his last win was in 2015. So it's not like it was ages ago. It wasn't recent, but it wasn't ages ago either. What do we think about Jim Furyk entering this as a serious contender in this event? He seems to thrive in this course. And then his value is through the roof. I mean, even a top 10 is 1,200. So do we like Jim Furyk to compete at all this weekend?
I think what you'd be wanting is a little nicer sign that something's there with him. So, for instance, you can't argue with what he did leading up to 2015 when he got that win. He'd won in 2010 as well, was run up in 05 and 06. But the brutal reality is his last 4 starts at Heritage, 3 missed cuts and a best of tied 70th in 2018. And then you look at his form, he's missed his last 2 cuts. And then before that, he was on the Champions Tour and he was tied 17th, which in that sort of setup, that's not ripping up too many. I've forgotten what the metaphor is. What do you rip up when you're doing well? It wasn't ripping up the course. Let's say. He wasn't ripping up the course. So I would be a little bit dubious on that. If you want, however, to back somebody who has a stellar record on the course and might do something, I might point you to Luke Donald. And this will seem a little bit
You beat me to
barking mad, right? Now, you got to bear with me on this one. First of all, his record at one point was mad. Between 09 and 17, he finished top 3 7 times in 9 visits to Harbour Town. So he clearly loves the golf course.
Yeah.
He's since gone cut 33 cut, right? It gets even worse because he hasn't made a cut since the Bermuda Championship at the start of November last year. And he hasn't made a finish of better than tied 40th since March last year.
Wow.
But I tell you one of the reasons why I like him, and I would be very, very conservative when I say what to look for. You can get something around the region of 4-1 that he gets to top 40. I haven't been able to find odds for him to make the cut, but I'd be kind of looking at that. And if I could get like 2-1 on him to make the cut, the reason why I'm interested is when he missed the cut at Texas Open, he went on Instagram and admitted that a friend of his had actually messaged him and said, "Are you thinking about giving up?" And he kind of took a photograph of the sunset and said, "I'm having a great time." Basically, when you think about it, I've had a great career.
Yeah.
I'm doing what I like doing. There was a lot of perspective there. And then he also posted on Instagram after Hideki Matsuyama won, and you could sort of tell he's been to Japan a lot. He's won in Japan. He likes Japanese people. He's found the place really exciting, and you can see he's kind of motivated and inspired by what Matsuyama did. And I'm kind of thinking, I would eat my hat if Luke Donald finished top 10 this week, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if he made the cut and then just enjoyed and had a week where he had the pressure of the world off his shoulders instead of like weighed all over them. So yeah, I don't go back into doing anything remarkable, but he could do something conservatively good.
Yeah, I mean, he's a 5-time runner-up. I mean, if you're telling me that I can get a 5-time runner-up at a particular event, and his top 10 odds are 4,000. I mean, yeah, I'm going to look for value in the top 20, top 30 markets for Luke Donald. You beat me to it because I actually had him on my list, which is great now because we can move to my guy, Abraham Ancer, who was a runner-up here in 2020. At the Masters, he had a 2-stroke penalty on Thursday, and I know this because I took Abraham Ancer in the top Oklahoma State market, and he finished 1 stroke below Victor Hovland, and so if he didn't get the 2-stroke penalty on Thursday, he would have covered that. But despite the 2-stroke penalty from Abe Ancer, he ended up going 3 under par as a result of that entering round 2. Then he played very well in rounds 2 and 4 to really dig himself out of the hole that he put himself in on Thursday, and he finished in the top 30 at the Masters after having to overcome that adversity. So what are your thoughts on Ancer? I know we talked a little bit about him last week, and I'm not playing favorites. I promise I'm not. It's just we go from one event to another, and he has these trends. So I'm wondering if Abe Ancer is better than advertised, and do we like him at all this week? Because I see his top 10 odds are plus 300. And, obviously there's a big difference between top 30, which Abe Ancer has seen in 4 straight events, and a top 10. So I just want to get your thoughts on Abraham Ancer, what you think of him as a golfer, and are we undervaluing what he can actually do on a golf course?
I tell you one thing. I think this is the sort of test that he has the potential to thrive on. I'm just having a little pan down his results at the moment just to try and back that up. Like, for instance, he finished tied 9th at El Camaleon in 2017, very similar to this week. He's finished tied 8th at Houston, so Windy in Texas. He's a winner in Australia, the Lakes in Australia. Again, it's not a very like this, but it was blustery there when he won the Australian Open. That's the only thing he's won at the moment, and that's a little bit of a worry. But he looks like he's also 8th at El Camaleon again in 2019. So, we're heading towards, this is his sweet spot, and it clearly must be his sort of sweet spot. I mean, he finished 64, 65, 65 when he finished second at Harbour Town. That's pretty impressive. Yeah. And like you say, if you're coming off something like what happened to him last week, the bit might be between his teeth. I kind of quite like that as an angle with him.
It's almost inspiration. in a way. It's like
Yeah,
motivation in a way.
yeah. I really like. I mean, I tend to look for little angles like that. I mean, you and I have discussed it a lot about how it tends to be the biggest problem with Rory McIlroy, that he tends not to get riled by things, but most people do, and it prompts very good performances often. I think if you're very convinced with Abraham Ancer, go for it. At the moment, he's treading the fine line for me between, yes, he's got a good chance. I tell you what, though, if Abraham Ancer was 50-1, I'd be very keen on him. As he is, I'm kind of like, he's a possibility. And ultimately, I'm actually this week kind of avoiding people who are much shorter than 40-1.
Well, okay, so got through all the players that I have listed here. Is there anyone, I know you've mentioned a few, Siwoo Kim already. Is there anyone who stands out that we haven't talked about? I know that just kind of looking through the list here, Cam Smith, he's been a really popular choice of lately. He didn't blow the roof off at the Masters, but he competed well. Will Zalatoris, I mean, oh my goodness, what a weekend he had. I see him up here with odds to win at 23-1. Is there any names that we haven't mentioned that you do feel good about, or maybe you don't feel good about that we haven't mentioned?
With Will Zalatoris, I just think, my word, that guy didn't seem to give a damn that he was playing in one of the biggest events in sport, never mind golf. But I'm also sort of thinking to myself, the physical and mental and emotional energy sap of last week must be huge. If he can go on and win this week, good luck to him. But at the odds, I'm happy to say no. And also, when push comes to shove, he's actually only won once in the last 18 months when he's playing stunning golf. So I'm kind of looking to try and be with him when the bookies have kind of decided he hasn't got a chance.
That makes sense.
Cam Smith, everything tells you Cam Smith should do well here. He's won at Wailea. He's won twice at a course in Australia that is very like this place called Royal Pines. But his course record's going in the completely wrong direction. I mean, he didn't start off especially good with a sort of top 20, which is okay, I suppose. But then he's missed the cut the last two times. The fella who's around about the sort of 40-ish price, who I think's got a bit of a shot, is Kevin Na, because he actually got quite inspired at Augusta, and he'd got himself to the airport, and then thought, hang on, Hideki's about to win. So he went back to the golf course and watched Hideki in and celebrated with him because he says he's a friend. He says he's a friend. It makes it sound like I'm dubious that they're friends. No, I'm perfectly willing to trust Kevin Na that they're friends. I didn't mean to spuriously suggest that otherwise. But he then went on to say that Asian golfers are going to get a real boost from this. I think that might well be the case. But there are a couple of things in his favour. It's that he's got an absolute raft of top finishes at this event, Kevin Na. He was 10th last year. He's finished 4th, 8th, 9th, 4th, 11th. He's got a very good record at this golf course.
That's 5 top 10s in a row at Harbour.
Oh, so not in a row. Sorry, those are in his record book. Yeah, okay. I think he's got 13 completed finishes here, and that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 are top 12 finishes. So he knows how to get it round here. Another interesting thing, he won the Sony Open this year, which, as I've been saying, is a very similar sort of test to this week. So those are 3 big ticks with him. I would throw one wild outsider at you, and he's got a similar sort of profile to Siwoo Kim in that he won a couple of times, disappeared into the doldrums for a bit, and then over the last sort of year, he's found form again. And when he had his 2 wins, he won El Camaleon and Wailea, and that man's name is Patton Kaziri, and he's quite a big price this week.
Yeah, he is.
And in addition to all of that, I thought he played quite well last time out when he finished tied 9th at the Texas Open, and he was actually 7th at Sony in January, and he was also 10th at Sea Island last November. So I think he's got a better chance than.
He's 100-1 to win here. On DraftKings, he's 100-1, 18-1 to finish in the top 5, and 8-1, 800 to finish in the top 10. What is your best bet? What is the one bet, it could be any market, it can be any golfer, that you like this weekend, and then also give me your favorite to fade.
Okay, so I mean, if you had to have a bet on your life, I would go with. I think you can get 7-4 that Kevin Na makes a top 20. I would go with that if your life depended on it. If you've got a bit more freedom, I would go with Siwoo Kim. And if I was going to fade somebody, gosh, that's a good one. I would. It's always a strange one when you fade somebody because you just think like a massive egg on your face. But I would probably go with Dustin Johnson. And Dustin Johnson has had plenty of opportunities to prove that he could do something at this golf course, and he hasn't quite done it. And everything does not look too rosy at the moment. So I would not be backing him at the price.
Yeah, he didn't play well at all in Augusta. As a matter of fact, I mean, it looked like of the three favorites, he, Spieth, and DeChambeau, that DeChambeau would miss the cut. Then his Friday round just, I mean, played unbelievable, and Dustin Johnson kind of fell down. So I totally buy that. And here with DraftKings, you can get Kevin Na 3-1 to finish in the top 10, plus 300, and then you can get Siwoo Kim at plus 450. So some really good value there.
Yep.
Matt, thanks so much. Can you tell everyone where to find all your work and where to find you on social media as well?
Yep. You can find me on Twitter, and I am at Matt Cooper Golf. And you can find, I mean, there's links to all my articles there, but you can also find me at planetsport.com.
Yep. And Matt has been doing a lot of DFS golf lately too. How's that going? I know it was like a different world for you when you started. Are you enjoying it?
Yeah, I've really enjoyed it. I mean, I have a weird background in DFS/fantasy. I was actually the Ladies European Golf Tour had won the fantasy game back in 2011, and I actually won it. I won
Nice.
the entire tour, which was amazing. I got an all expenses paid trip to Dubai, 1 week in Dubai. It was absolutely sensational. Yeah, and I've been doing it. I did DFS for Roto World for 2 or 3 years. I'm back doing it again for a couple of places. Yeah, it's a subtly different thing to betting.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
yeah,
You're dealing with a budget. Yeah, it's like a combination of players you have to find rather than just one.
Yep. But yeah, I really enjoy it. Yeah, it's I had quite a good week. What was it? 2 weeks ago in Texas. Not so good last week. Yeah, and they're actually it's quite a good point you make. Actually, I mean, I had a sensational week punting, but an average week.
Yeah.
DFS.
Two different worlds. It really is.
Yeah.
But awesome. Thanks, Matt, so much for coming on. Really appreciate it. As always, insightful. Thanks so much for your time.
Thanks, Tom.
And don't forget, everyone listening and watching, be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And then you can follow us on our social platforms as well, which does include YouTube and Twitter. That's going to do it for us here at the Vegas Insider YouTube channel. Good luck with your golf bets this weekend. Go out there, make some smart bets, make some money. Until next time, we'll see you.